community's campaign against youth crime lands at State Parliament. Electrolux and the unions again go head-to-head. And the decision to defer the enactment of water-sharing plans welcomed.
News Late Edition with Geoff Phillips.
Good evening. State Premier Bob Carr has been accused of trying to deflect attention from Dubbo's Law and Order petition by making a desperate 11th-hour announcement of extra crime measures for Dubbo. Petition organisers today handed the document to opposition politicians who say the 11,000 signatures attest to the community's disgust with the government's failure to address the problem.
As Leo De Croo prepared to fly out to Sydney to deliver his Law and Order petition to Parliament, fired a broadside at the state government's package to combat youth crime in Dubbo, questioning yesterday's surprise announcement and Bob Carr's commitment to solving the problem on a statewide basis, saying it's only the community's action which prompted the Premier's response.
Well, of course. So it basically means that if you need anything done, instead of common sense law applying to the whole issue, each town has to do something like this.
Tom Watkinson's business has been targeted by young vandals twice in the past 5 weeks, leaving him thousands of dollars out of pocket.
These parents are obviously not teaching these kids any respect for anyone or anybody's property, and I mean, we've just had a gutful of it.
The petition, signed by almost a third of Dubbo's population, was handed over to coalition leaders who tabled it in Parliament this afternoon. They've given it their full support, saying it's time to make parents responsible.
If they had to start forking out, they would be in a situation overnight where they'd want to be a better parent and take more interest in what their children are doing.
A key demand changes to the existing Parental Responsibility Act,
which is so impracticable and which puts all the costs of implementation on local councils, that councils don't take it up. They can't take it up.
The opposition also criticising the Premier's package, describing it as a rehash of existing programs.
It doesn't address the issue of the age of these kids. It doesn't address the issue of parental responsibility, and that's why we're calling on the government to get fair dinkum about it. Mr
Brogden issuing a challenge to the Premier to spend a Saturday night on the streets of Dubbo to see the problem firsthand. Madeline Denham, Win News.
3 people were trapped for about 15 minutes after 2 vehicles collided at the intersection of Park and March Streets this afternoon. Emergency services were called to the scene shortly after 3 o'clock, arriving to find one vehicle on its roof resting against the fence of a house. Fire brigade crews worked to free those trapped, who were then loaded into waiting ambulance vehicles before being taken to Orange Base Hospital for treatment. Investigations into the cause of the crash are continuing. Detectives have renewed an appeal for information regarding the disappearance of a Geary man more than 3 years ago. Maxwell Francis George was last seen in March 2000 on the property Salvation via Brewarrina, which he'd been caretaking. Police hold grave fears for his safety and believe he may have met with foul play, saying the circumstances surrounding his disappearance are extremely suspicious. Mr George is described as about 179 centimetres tall, heavily built with a fair complexion and light brown hair. Anyone with information should contact Burke Detectives on 68 700 899 or Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. Tension is escalating at Orange's Electrolux plant, with the unions today calling for an end to what they describe as management's radical anti-worker campaign. The move follows a push by the company to force workers to take part in a secret ballot, which the unions say is illegal and dividing employees.
Since February, the unions and workers have been embroiled in a battle with Electrolux over the enterprise bargaining agreement, and today it again came to a head. Sick and tired of the ongoing stop work campaigns led by the unions and the rejection of 3 previous EBA offers, management decided to conduct a secret ballot amongst workers to present to the Industrial Relations Commission to obtain a non-union agreement. But the unions claim it's nothing more than a campaign to de-unionise the plant, calling on workers to vote no in the ballot to allow them to continue to have negotiating powers.
What the company's trying to do through the secret ballot is use numbers against those people to force them to work those extra hours for below award conditions. And what we're saying is that's discriminatory.
Electrolux is offering workers a 12% pay rise over 3 years and claims the offer is the best they can do, calling for the unions to meet them halfway.
The company's moved its position 4 times We believe we've come to the middle of the road and we're just asking the unions to do the same.
However, the unions say they're in it for the long haul and won't stop until the company recognises its 1,200 workers demand respect and the right not to be forced to be involved in the ballot.
Management should come and come to the table and let's just get on with it. We don't need this secret ballot. We are here to talk to them and to do a deal.
More mass meetings and stop work campaigns are planned for the coming weeks. Sarah McGregor, Win News.
The state government has given final approval to the Lake Cowell gold mine project 7 years after it first knocked back the proposal because it did not meet environmental standards. The approval follows 2 commissions of inquiry and long-running native title deliberations, as well as numerous battles in the Land and Environment Court. Premier Bob Carr has assured the Wiradjuri people they'll gain a wide range of benefits over the life of the project, including job and training opportunities. The $340 million gold mine is expected to create up to 500 jobs. Construction will begin later this year. Meantime, the news is not so good for Cowra, with the wool manufacturing plant Lachlan Industries to close in August. The top making section was shut down in November last year, management now deciding to suspend business in the scouring and maintenance sections. It's estimated 20 workers will be affected by the closure, with the employees assured they'll receive adequate redundancy packages and entitlements when the plant closes on August 1. The Lachlan River Management Committee believes the state government's decision to defer the implementation of water sharing plans is sensible, allowing further time to fine-tune the reforms. The delay follows the Commonwealth's decision to develop a national water plan, with Natural Resources Minister Craig Knowles saying it would be premature for the state to go ahead with its own proposal.
The New South Wales government says it's willing to wait until the Commonwealth has formed a national water plan to ensure the state's water sharing proposals fit in with any new model. The plans were to come into effect on July 1, but they've now been deferred until January next year. That move welcomed.
I think it probably should have happened a lot sooner, because we've been working on these plans, particularly for the Lachlan River, for the last 5 years. But I think the minister's done a sensible thing.
The plan's going to operate for 10 years, so people certainly need that certainty and security for operation.
The plans have caused controversy in the Lachlan Valley, where irrigators attended a massive protest rally in Forbes last year, expressing fears that cuts to entitlements would spell economic disaster for the region.
We were all greatly concerned as a committee that that plan that was launched by the then Minister John Aquilina here in Forbes in late last year, it went back to Sydney to get put into legal language, and it came back looking something very different.
While the minister doesn't intend to reopen negotiations on the plans, the 6-month delay is seen as an opportunity to iron out any problems, such as compensation issues. The Lachlan Valley Committee confident its final recommendations will be taken on board.
Come to very positive conclusions, and we would hope that they would hold at this stage. They have to go towards the minister this week.
Jacqueline Thompson, Win News.
Coming up next on Win News, an Education Department shake-up to hit the West and new hopes for the future of an endangered marsupial. There'll be no commercial release of genetically modified food crops in New South Wales for the next 3 years after the state's lower house passed legislation last night, almost 3 weeks after the bill was passed by the upper house with several amendments. Agriculture Minister Ian McDonald says the moratorium is a victory for farmers and consumers and fulfils the state government's pre-election promise to delay the release until the public has time to become familiar with the marketing issues surrounding the technology. Meantime, the Carr government is being battered on all sides by accusations of cover-ups before the recent state election. Now, the Teachers Federation has waded into the battle, claiming an Education Department restructure was not mentioned prior to the March poll. Under the proposal, district offices would go, leaving Orange as a regional office serving the west of the state.
These job cuts appear to be directly related to the need for the department to find, within its existing budget, money to fund the ALP's pre-election promises. The government has deceived the New South Wales electorate.
A tiny marsupial has been found on a western property, the first time the species has been seen in New South Wales for 3 years. The find has buoyed the hopes of National Parks and Wildlife staff who've implemented a recovery plan for the coulter.
It might be tiny in size and no longer breathing, but this coulter found near Brewarrina is creating a buzz in the conservation world.
This find is very significant because it's the first coal tar that's actually been found in the last 3 years, and there's very few coal tars being found at all.
Authorities believe the main threat to the coal tar is the proliferation of feral cats, a species well suited to the wholesale destruction of Australia's small marsupials.
The coal tar has natural predators, but it also seems to have declined greatly since feral cats have been around, so cats do take their toll on the coal tar.
Until now, the coal tar had all been given up as lost in New South Wales. With this find, the recovery plan for the species has been given a boost.
The coal tar is listed as endangered, which is the highest status within the threatened species listings in New South Wales, which means that we think it may become extinct sometime in the near future. And to know that there is coal tar still out there means that we still have some chance of working with them.
John Ryan, Win News.
The state government has hit back at criticism over the safety and security of police serving at one officer stations. In the wake of 2 separate attacks on an off-duty female officer at the Cumnock station in recent weeks, the coalition has claimed the government is failing to protect lone police officers from being assaulted or threatened. Police Minister John Watkins says the police force takes very seriously the need for properly trained and equipped officers to be placed in single unit locations, and that there's a strict policy to support single officers performing their daily duties. Dubbo Regional Art Gallery has been paid a massive compliment by 2 of the nation's top contemporary artists. The gallery has been asked to organise a travelling exhibition which will begin in the city before travelling to other regional galleries in the nation.
It's been a tough couple of months for Dubbo Regional Art Gallery. Since the fire at Dubbo City Council's administration block, the gallery has been shunted around various parts of the town.
The gallery is getting by the best it can. The exhibitions, we've reduced or scaled down our exhibition program, and we're exhibiting in Macquarie Regional Library.
Meanwhile, administration staff are operating from the old Dubbo High School site and, despite the problems, are full steam ahead, receiving a federal grant for more than $35,000 to stage an innovative exhibition.
The grant that we got was from Visions Australia. It's a development grant to help us put together an exhibition of the work of Hossein and Angela Valamanesh.
The gallery has been singled out to organise a regional tour at the artist's request.
What he has agreed to is for Dubbo Regional Gallery to organise this show and to organise this regional tour, and he hasn't offered this to anyone else. It's a great accolade for Dubbo.
John Ryan, Win News.
Time for sport with Matt Russell, and Parks Rugby is to play on, Matt.
Geoff, the Boars will play CSU. Also more Blue Bulls in the Cockatoos starting lineup, and Hornsby jams the Lasers in State League basketball. Emus Mark Daly and John Carberry have been promoted to the New South Wales Country starting 15 for the Cockatoos Australian Rugby Shield clash against Perth. Daly gets his chance to impress at fly half after starting from the bench in last week's 19-point win over Darwin, while Carberry will line up at flanker. They are 2 of 8 Central West players in the side. Bathurst second rower Matt Waterford has been called into the squad of 22 and will be used as an impact player against last year's Shield finalist. Meanwhile, Parks Rugby Union will take to the field for its Blouse Cup clash against CSU this weekend, despite the loss of treasured clubman Malachi Fizolosi. The Boars today confirmed they'll pull the boots on in memory of the 49-year-old who died in a single-vehicle crash on Saturday night.
Fizolosi was a pillar of the Parks club, a 289-game veteran who clubmates say had a word of advice for everyone. His death has hit the Boars hard.
Because a lot of us had played with Mal that day or had seen him at the game, so to go so suddenly was a huge shock to the whole club and basically devastation.
With Fizolosi's funeral service to be held on Saturday morning, Parks had contemplated pulling out of this week's clash against CSU, but will instead pull on the boots in memory of their fallen teammate after receiving the go-ahead from his family. Captain Wayne Osborne says Fizolosi wouldn't have wanted it any other way.
And most of the players have taken that sort of approach to it as well, and are really sort of looking to go out there and give it one last shot for the old fella.
The Boars will be missing 2 first-graders injured in the crash. Central West halfback Tonga Fallu is recovering from a broken leg, while winger Billy Tagarara fights for his life at Nepean Base Hospital. But the club says one of the biggest holes on Saturday will be on the sideline.
just a person who has played with so many people. He's played with many generations in our club, so it's very hard to replace a man like Mal. You know.
The Parks Rugby Committee has set up an independent trust to aid the victims' families. Donations can be made to the Rugby Family Appeal at any Westpac branch.
Panthers centre Jason Thorne has been cleared on a high tackle charge stemming from last week's Bathurst derby. Thorne appeared before the Group 10 judiciary for allegedly attacking the head of Saints fullback Wade Mogg, but was found not guilty after producing video evidence. Meanwhile, Blackheath continues to set the pace in Mid-West Rugby League. The Black Cats thumped Wallerawang by 20 points. In other matches, Oberon defeated Golgong and Portland accounted for Lithgow. In round 7 of Woodbridge Cup, Cargo beat Molong, Burrangong down to Canowindra and Kurawatha was too strong for Burrawa. There were wins for Canamble and Barradine in Castlereagh competition. Trundle and Warren took the Bogan Cup points. The Stewart Town-Condobolin match was deferred. Lithgow has been hammered by Hornsby in round 9 of the State League basketball competition. The Lasers misfired against the undefeated Spiders, beaten 91-70.
Hornsby found its range early and never looked back. The Spiders exploiting Lithgow's fragile defence in the key and shutting down the Lasers' attack in the opening quarter. The visitors in a commanding position at the first break despite Lithgow's late rally. The Lasers improved with the ball in the second quarter and stole the spotlight when Michael Seckold soared. The explosive guard went on to score a game-high 20 points against the Spiders' dominant D, but it wasn't enough as the Spiders built on a 15-point half-time lead. Hornsby overcoming foul trouble to win its 6th consecutive match and retaining its 100% record this season. The loss leaves Lithgow in 4th position in the Southern Pool, with Bathurst still languishing in 7th. The Gold Miners went down to the Hawks by 25 on their Illawarra road trip. Jay Forrester top scoring in a beaten side, netting 16. Lithgow's winless run continues in Women's State League, stumbling to a 22-point loss at home. Hornsby found holes in the Lasers' defence and dominated the boards as Lithgow attempted to win the match from the perimeter. The game plan didn't work. The Spiders took a 6-point lead at half-time, eventually triumphing 68-46.
Western Area is through to tomorrow's combined high schools hockey finals after taking a win and a draw from its final 2 pool matches. Simon Wade scored a double in Western's 5-0 demolition of Sydney West before the team came from behind to draw 3-3 with North Coast. Dubbo Senior College will get the chance to wrap up Western Region School Sport's most treasured prize when it tackles Orange High in the second round of Astley Cup competition tomorrow. After a clean sweep against Bathurst last week, Dubbo needs an overall victory against the former long-time cup holder to complete a successful defence, but will have to overcome its away hoodoo. Dubbo has only won in Orange 3 times since the Second World War and once in the past 33 years. Day 1 begins with tennis before debating, basketball, netball and soccer. Well, it's what every golfer shoots for at least once in his career. But when a $250,000 prize is on the line, everyone wants a go. Bathurst's first charity hole-in-one competition encouraged more than 100 hopefuls to have a swing.
Mark Horton and John Archer are just your typical weekend hackers, but that didn't stop them teeing off in the Bathurst charity shootout.
I just got talked into it last night to come up and have a go, so it is for charity and that's the main reason.
There is another.
The money.
Finalists will have the opportunity of having one shot to score a hole-in-one. If they do, they win $250,000 in cash and a Holden Barina worth $20,000.
Miss the 10-metre circle around the hole and you'd have felt like a goose, but at least your cash went to the dogs. More than $1,500 was raised for the training of 4 assistance puppies to be placed with Bathurst residents suffering physical disabilities.
And they do things like retrieve items off the floor, they open and close doors, they hit light switches, they hit pedestrian crossing buttons, and they're also a loving companion.
While Mark had been lucky enough to already score that most elusive of golfers' goals, John wasn't short of motivation.
I thought that I could possibly get one before I die.
Unfortunately, it wasn't to be on the day. 96 centimetres was the closest anyone got, Bathurst golfer Phil Campbell winning the nearest to the pin final. For John Archer and millions of others, the quest continues. Anthony Fisher, Wing News.
Have I told you about my hole-in-one on the 4th at Duntry League?
No, thank goodness
No,
you haven't.
Didn't happen.
And have I told you a week from today? It's State of Origin too? All right. All the weather details with Phil Diamond right after the break.
Good evening. Well, a foggy start to Wednesday in parts, but the sun did its best. Temperatures were still down on yesterday, though. In regards to the rain, we may see some in our northern reaches before long. Onto the satellite photo, and cloud stretches from north of Sydney to the Queensland border and back to the inland as a stubborn high settles in the Bight. That high will ridge to the Tasman Sea tomorrow, while a weak trough develops over the far northeast of New South Wales and an upper pool of cold air forms over South Australia. Friday, the high should drift north, allowing a cold front to push into the eastern Bight. Meantime, the cold air hits northwest New South Wales with showers. Saturday, the cold front moves into southwest New South Wales. To the rainfall. Tonight and this morning, the mid-north coast had light falls, topping the state at Comboyne, 5 millimetres. The Greater Sydney region and southern Riverina also had a couple of drops, while from 9 to 3 today, nothing fell in the state. In the north of the viewing area today, a very cold one at Coonabarabran, -1 to 17. The forecast for the northwest slopes and plains, areas of early frost and fog, then fine, cool to mild with a light variable wind. And looking ahead, a few showers for Friday. They'll contract east on Saturday, leaving Sunday fine and cold. A start of 2 to 21 for the district tomorrow. The central west slopes and plains today, up to 20. The areas peak at Coonamble, a start of 3 there. Dubbo hit 19, as did Dunedoo. Googandra, 3 to 19 degrees. 0 at Parkes to 18. Wellington, 2 overnight to 19 today. The forecast. They say morning frost and fog, cloudy periods, but on the whole dry, with a light to moderate wind. And looking ahead, a chance of a shower to the north on Friday, then fine over the weekend, down to 3 up to 19 in Dubbo tomorrow. And finally, for the central tablelands today, a very cold one again at Bathurst, -1 to 13, frosts abound. 16 the top for Cowra and Lithgow, 17 the district's top at Mudgee. Orange hit 15 today. The forecast, they say early fog and frost, fine and crisp with a south to southwest wind. And looking ahead, dry for Friday, Saturday, some early drizzle on Sunday. Orange 13 tomorrow, 18 for Mudgee. Bathurst hits 13 as well, as does Goulburn. On to the dams, and for Burrendong, steady on 9% holding capacity. The release hasn't changed for a number of days now. Wangla 9%, the release is down about 48. So all up, a few showers about, but they won't be widespread, Geoff.
But they will be welcome. And that is the Central West News for this particular night. I'm Geoff Phillips from the Win News team. Good night.
This has been a Win News presentation from Australia's largest regional television network.